Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my ranking of The Serpent, the BBC Netflix historical drama series based on the murders and crimes of Charles Sobergy, aka The Serpent. That happened during the mid-1970s, mainly in Thailand, but also in other countries in Asia, including India and Nepal, amongst others. So, The Serpent. This was an incredible series. This was absolutely brilliant. It was fantastically well made. The cast was outstanding, especially Time Marze, I think I've got that name wrong, as Charles Sobergy, and of course the lovely Jenna Coleman as Marie Andre Leclerc, and also the guy who played Herman Kippenberg. He was incredibly fantastic. In fact, he might even have been best actor of the series. So special shout out to him. And of course, more incredible actors in main roles and an incredible range of supporting characters coming in and out depending on the episodes that they're required for. This was such a great series. If you want to find out more about my full opinions on each of the 8 episodes, please check out the reviews. I've done one for each of the episodes. And now we're going to rank them. Before we start, special shout out to John Michael Fink for providing at least one comment on each of the first 7 reviews, and an even bigger special shout out to him if he comments at episode 8 and this ranking. Other shout outs also go to Miss C, KPZCB, TTP, and Favourite Films for also providing at least one comment on at least one of those first 7 reviews. And bigger shout outs to them if they comment on episode 8 or this rankings, and also shout out to anybody who comments on this in this rankings comments or on the episode 8 comments upon their release, and anybody who comments on any of these reviews or this ranking in the future. So the episodes we will be ranking are The Serpent episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, episode 5, episode 6, episode 7, and episode 8. Like with Black Narcissus and some of the other shows I've reviewed, this series doesn't have individual episode titles. It's just episode 1, episode 2, etc., which is easy when putting the episode titles in the at the start of the ranking, in the titles, etc. Just put episode 1 instead of episode 1, insert title afterwards. But when it comes to ranking said episodes, then you have to remember which episode is which from the number. And because there is no title, whilst other shows that have titles in their episodes, like Doctor Who, Sherlock, etc., they'll have the episode number and the titles, or just the titles. So whilst it's good that it's a short, simple, and just the number of the episode for my reviews titles, when it comes to the ranking, it's a little bit more tricky. Anyway, on to the ranking. So every episode of this series was absolutely brilliant, but we got to start with the lowest rated episode, and I am afraid it's unfortunately the first episode. Number 8 is The Serpent episode 1. Now this one just felt like a very starter episode. It was just getting us to know the characters, getting us off the ground, starting to move the stuff forward. It was a very starty episode, but it was still a very good one. It was a very good first episode, and it got us moving off the ground. But it was still quite a notably first episode. It still got us moving. I had the same thing with Black Narcissus episode 1, where it just felt like a very beginnings episode. They just felt like they were starting the story, and the same could be felt with this series. The difference between these two series is that Black Narcissus was 3 episodes, and it was still quite slow across those 3 episodes. But The Serpent is 8 episodes, and yet after episode 1, the series actually picks itself up and gets going quite quickly. Heck, episode 1 of The Serpent is probably still quicker than the entirety of the Black Narcissus series. It was a good start to the series, and a pretty good introduction to what was going on. I do think this one did go back and forth a lot between times and places. This one and the next episode 2, they did that a lot more, or at least a bit more than the following 6 episodes did. So I think maybe that kind of deterred my feelings for the first 2 episodes a little bit. But with episode 3 onwards, I kind of got used to it. Speaking of episode 2, moving on to number 7, episode 2. The episode that dived into Marie's backstory and how she met Charles and how she got involved with him and her falling in love with him and why she's doing this in the first place, as well as also showing that she's not just a heartless monster like we might have seen her in episode 1, but more as a kind of a person who actually has feelings and has these doubts and this softer side to her, maybe even a double side, a dual personality between Marie and Monique. And I think the episode explores her side of the story pretty well in this episode, as well as starting to build up the investigation that Herman Kuppenberg is starting to investigate, and he's trying to get to the bottom of what's going on. So I think episode 2 is a really good story that keeps the story going and keeps the momentum going, and the pacing is brilliant. And I'm loving that we're starting to see that Marie's not just a heartless villain as maybe episode 1 might have presented her, just going along with Charles because she loves him and etc. But this episode manages to put some perspective on her character, and I think that works incredibly well, and it also helps for her character moving forward. Moving on to number 6, and this is the only placement number, 8765, etc. This is the only placement number that shares its number with the episode, because number 6 is episode 6. Yeah, this is the only one that the episode of which is the placement on this list. Episode 1, for example, is not first. Episode 8, for example, is not last. So, yeah, this is the only one. 6 is 6th, and that's the only case of the episode number being the same placement number on the ranking. So, episode 6, I thought this was a really good episode, but I think it was a bit of a step down following the previous 3, episodes 3, 4, and 5, which had some incredible tension. But episode 6 kind of, not as much, but it was still a really good episode. This is the one I think comes after the one that when Charles and Marie and AJ escape from the Thai police at the end of episode 5. So they're back on the run. They're living the good life again, whilst Herman and company are kind of in a bit awkward situation, but they soon get themselves back on top. But yeah, it was still a good episode. It was really good and had some great moments going forward. And I also liked how Marie kind of snaps. I think it's in this episode. She snaps in this episode. And also, they send AJ away. And it is a bit disappointing. We don't really know what happened to him. But at the same time, it's actually quite interesting that there's a mystery surrounding him, because he doesn't just... because he kind of gets away scot-free, but at the same time, we don't really know what happened to him. So it does create an interesting mystery surrounding him, just as much as the mystery around Charles's murders and which ones he actually did and which ones he didn't. Spoiler alert, he probably did all of them, but he won't admit to it, obviously. And Marie's now dead. She's only admitted to... I mean, we got the one she's admitted to, but we can't ask her about anything else now. And now AJ's gone somewhere. I don't know where, so yeah, but it was a bit disappointing to not see him get a comeuppance, and he might get away scot-free, but there's still this mystery around him, so we can still make our theories about what happened to him. Maybe he's already dead. He might even have died before Marie. Who knows? He might outlive both of them. Charles might die at some point, and he might outlive him. Maybe he's watched this miniseries. Who knows? Maybe he's watching these reviews. Okay, that's probably the least likely thing to happen. Him watching these reviews is probably the least likely thing. Though if Ajax Cowdery is watching this ranking, Mr. Chowdhury, you are a motherfucking cunt. I hope he gets that message, even if he's not watching this video, or maybe he's in heaven and he's gotten the message already. Okay, moving on to number 5. This is where the episodes get really good. This is really great stuff coming in now. I mean, they were already good, but now it's getting really good. With episode 7. Now, this was a great episode, but it didn't quite get to the 10 out of 10 levels like the top 4 do. But it was probably the closest of the 9 out of 10 trio, which were 2, 6, and 7. Episode 1 was an 8 out of 10 in my opinion. But episode 7 was a really great episode with Charles and Marie in France, and Herman and his crew gathering more evidence to go against him, and Interpol finally getting involved. Um, so the story is moving the stakes on. It is more or less a move the pieces into the position for the finale episode, but at the same time, it still does a really great job with the story it's telling and with moving all of those said pieces into position for the finale. It does a really great job. Moving on to top four, we're in the top half of the series, and they're all 10 out of 10s from this point onwards. Starting with episode 5. This is the episode where Charles and company get arrested on charges of drugs. When the police try to arrest them, but they manage to escape at the very end. Well, they manage to escape before the end, and then the contents of their safe is opened, but it's revealed they've already taken stuff out and hidden them elsewhere in their flats. But it's still a really great, tense episode, and you kind of get a bit of a satisfaction knowing that they've been caught this soon, but because there's still 3 more episodes left, you know there's still going to be stuff going down in the next 3 episodes before they can finally be charged. So you can kind of gather that they're going to escape this one. But that kind of makes the satisfaction of the last episode when they get caught even more delicious, because they've already escaped justice so many times. We see this throughout the rest of the series as well, that it makes the finale even more satisfactory when they do get caught and that's it, they can't go on, they can't escape anymore. Well, Charles just does try at least one. Well, Charles does once, but that's part of his plan to avoid death in Thailand. But for the most part, the finale is when it's the satisfactory conclusion, and this episode kind of makes us a bit more hungry for that satisfactory conclusion when they manage to escape justice once again, when it looks like they could have been sent down. But yeah, it was a really great episode. Moving on to number 3, speaking of the finale, episode 8. An incredibly satisfactory conclusion, incredibly satisfying. It was so good. It was such a great story, such a great episode, and it wrapped up everything so well. I believe this series is historically accurate, or to the best of they can do, with imagined dialogue between the characters and some names changed for identity reasons. Regardless, this is still a really satisfactory ending, and it's still also really great. So many great moments throughout this episode. I don't think it's as good as the top 2 episodes on my list, because I don't think the tension's as high in this one as my top 2, or even episode 5. But I still think it's an incredibly satisfactory ending, and it gives us a great conclusion to the series. So that's why it's 3rd place. It's top 3 territory. But it doesn't quite make the top 2, because those 2 have incredible tension. Number 2. Now, this episode has some great tension, great stuff going for it. And this is the first episode where one of our heroes actually gets into some danger. When Charles approaches them and he offers to drive them home, it's actually a great tensionous episode, as we're uncertain what happens to this character. And this, of course, takes place in episode 4. So this is the episode when Nadine gets taken home by Charles and company back to the hotel. So this episode makes some great tension about her being there, and the worries that from the audience that she's going to get killed by Charles and company. She's going to get found out for helping Dominique, and she's going to get killed for it. And throughout the episode, she tries to spy on them. She tries to get some information out to Herman so that he can make a case against Charles, and then he calls the police on them. And of course, they all work out that Nadine did kind of rat them out by the end of episode 5, but she manages to survive the series. But episode 4, this was the one where we were kind of on the edge of our seats, where we were wondering what was going to happen to her. Were they going to be onto her, or was she going to get out? And thankfully, the answer was she managed to escape. AJ didn't even hurt her at the end of episode 5 when he confronted her about it. So she's okay. She managed to get out alive. But this episode built some incredible tension surrounding that, as well as also some great stuff with Charles, Marie, and AJ when they went to, I believe it was Nepal they went to in this episode. So some great stuff when they went to Nepal and got some to see some of that stuff take place in the episode. And now, number 1, my favourite episode from The Serpent. It is, of course, episode 3. Okay, The Serpent started as a really great series with its first episode, went even better with the second episode, and it was just brilliant. And then episode 3 just changed the game more so. I mean, the first 2 episodes were already great, but the third one just completely changed the game. This was a fantastic episode. It was so fantastic. Started off, we kind of got a new point of view with the character Dominique, and this episode was probably the most tensionous of all of the 8 episodes, with Nadine and Remy's assistants. They managed to get him out by the end, but throughout the episode, the tension was building as we were seeing the character from seeing the character's point of view of what was going on, and Nadine and Remy's attempts to help him, whilst they also tell Herman in the present, I say present day stuff, the present day stuff for them. A couple months later, when he comes to talk to them, when they talk to him, we get some great moments between them and Herman's wife, and when they're talking about Dominique. It's such a great episode, and the tension building and building, and the ending. Oh, the ending is so good. This is probably the best ending of any of the episodes, even episode 8, which was a fantastic conclusion to the series. But the best ending was this episode, because it ended with Dominique not only managing to get home to France, but also telling Nadine that he was okay. So they now know he's okay. But then Nadine gets confronted by Charles, and he offers to take her home, which leads into episode 4, which I've just talked about. So this has an incredible ending. It was a happy and okay, she might be in a bit of trouble ending. In a way, it's kind of a mixed bag of emotions, but still fantastically handled. So good, and the episode was such a great episode. I loved this episode, and I think thanks to this episode, it made the series even better. I'd already liked the series so far with the first 2 episodes, and I thought it gotten better for the second episode from the first, but the first one was still off to a good start. And then the second one was also really great. And then episode 3 came along, and it changed everything to be even more tensionous and even more great. You could argue that it was already being like that, but honestly, I think episode 3 basically set the precedent of what the series was going to be like going forward. And it did it in such a fantastic way. And it's probably this episode that would probably make a lot of people stick with the series. If they weren't already into the series with episodes 1 or 2, or episodes 1 and 2, it's episode 3 that I think people would get invested in the series. It's such a great episode. If you're only going to watch one episode of this series, I highly recommend watching episode 3. It is the best episode, in my opinion. And considering 4 of the 8 episodes of this series are fantastic, that's saying a lot. And the other 4 episodes are also still brilliant. So yeah, this is such a great series. So that's it from my ranking. Before we wrap up, here's a reminder: number 8, episode 1; number 7, episode 2; number 6, episode 6; number 5, episode 7; number 4, episode 5; number 3, episode 8; number 2, episode 4; and number 1, episode 3. This was such a great series. This was a great series to watch, and I highly recommend checking out. If you live in the UK, you can check out all of the episodes on BBC iPlayer. You've been able to do that since New Year's Day, when they released the first episode, and the whole series was put on iPlayer so that could be binged. But yeah, now all of the episodes have been shown on BBC One, so they are now able to watch on BBC iPlayer. They'll probably come to Netflix or other streaming services in the future, and there'll probably be a DVD and Blu-ray release, at least for the UK, in the next couple months. At least I would think they would. I don't know how many extras there'll be. They'll probably just have the episodes, maybe some behind the scenes. So yeah, that is The Serpent. What a brilliant series, and I highly recommend you check it out. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching these reviews, and thank you so much for watching this ranking. I shall see you guys next time, well, whatever and whenever that might be. Until then, goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel.